Hello, I'm Dom and I'm a startup guru. I help people go from idea to app. And in this video, I want to talk about an important part of the process, which is your minimum viable product or MVP. Let's start with, what is an MVP? Now, if I go into a room with 100 people and ask a question, what's an MVP? I will get 100 different answers, ranging from an email newsletter all the way through to a full-blown app with 15 features in it. Now, what I want to do in this video is really talk about, why do you build an MVP? Well, first of all, it's about learning. What you want to do is learn about your user base, about where they are, about what connects with them, and how you can convert them into users. Next, it's for validation. In my previous videos, I talked about problems and pain points, and that you deliver value to your users in alleviating that pain. Now, if your problem statement is one of, this person is time poor and they can't achieve this thing, then you can hypothesize that doing that thing in 15 minutes is the answer that they're looking for. But if you were to build a full app that will actually deliver that, that's going to take time, money, effort, and huge amounts of it. What you want to do is say, I know this is what they want, and an MVP is what you use to get there. And finally, you use an MVP to get your foundation of users. This is the early adopters. This is your baseline set of people who are going to take on board your product to solve their problem. Before I go into how you can put together an MVP, I want to talk about my clients, and many of them who want to skip the MVP process altogether and go straight to the product. This comes from two places. First of all, a fear of failing. A lot of clients are fearful that if they release a product that's a bit scrappy and a bit all over the place, that they're going to lose a user and they're going to lose them forever. It's simply not true. That's not what happens. We have all used an app, gone, I don't like this, and then gone back to it later on. An argument often here is, if we know what's needed, then why don't we just build the product in its entirety? But the fact is, you don't know what's needed. You really don't know what's needed until you get in front of people with your product. And another form that fear takes is that you need to capture as many people as possible on that first release. Again, this is simply not true, because in that first release, whoever your persona is, they need to be in a Venn diagram where one side is early adopters. The second reason why some of my clients want to skip the MVP process is what I call the myth of the inventor. The example I always hear is that Steve Jobs sat down and he thought up the iPhone and he changed the world. But that's not what actually happened. It took his team 3 years to convince Jobs that Apple should make a phone. Jobs was all in on the iPod and had no interest in the beginning. But it was his team who realized that as phones were building in MP3 technology, that the iPod would become defunct. And they were right. Equally, there is an MVP of the iPhone, the iPod Touch. If you go back and have a look, the iPod Touch essentially was the first iPhone without phone and messaging. When people talk about how great the iPhone is, they're normally talking about the iPhone 3, the iPhone 4. What they miss out is the original iPhone that had no app store, that couldn't take video, and it was running on 2G. It had really crappy internet. So what you want to do is not fall into this trap, which is a fear of failing or thinking that you have to be the ultimate inventor. Build your teams, do your homework. So don't find yourself falling into a trap, which is the fear of failing and the myth of the inventor, to skip over a really important tool that you can use in order that you're going to make sure you're going to succeed. This is about being strategic and not tactical. Now, building an MVP comes from your scope. And if you write good scope, then what it will look like is that you'll have several options of the things that you can implement. That could be a feature, could be a tool, could be an entire app. And an MVP is essentially the simplest version that you've got. It's quick to ship and cheap to deploy. But you have to tell the story of the user to be able to figure those things out. What I'm trying to do is tell a story of a person who is desperate to get their problem solved, because then they're desperate to adopt anything. These people become the lowest of the low-hanging fruit. So to write that good story, you need to be precise, you need to be accurate, you need to be specific in your problem statement. Who's experiencing this problem? What are they trying to achieve? What barrier stands in their way? Why does that barrier exist? And how do they feel when they experience this problem? So here's an example. as a freelance developer, I want to grow my business and have better paying clients and more of them. But I spend most of my time looking for new work for low rates because I can't find the people who have great projects and good funding. When I do find them, I find I can't pitch as well because all of my experience is with low funding and small projects. Therefore, I feel I'm wasting my time in lead generation and all I am doing is harassing people for work. So finally, how to build an MVP. First of all, set clear goals. One of them has to be some form of validation. So it could be that 20 people adopt our MVP. Next, scope your product conceptually. If you don't get it right in the concept, no amount of implementation will save you. Also, have a clear hypothesis. Once you've got that problem statement in and you believe it to be true, what is your hypothesis that you need to test? One thing to get good at is kill your babies. You may feel confident that your implementation is going to be the solution that everybody wants, but then you go out and you find nobody adopts it. Be ready to kill it, put it in the bin, and do something else. If your scope is good enough, you should have other options. And that leads to the most important part. Launch as quickly as possible. Get rid of all of the long tail features. When I build MVPs, I'm looking to build something over a weekend. That's how quick I'm talking about. Because if I have something tangible that somebody can adopt, that is the only validation that matters. I don't care about how many surveys you have. I don't care about how much user testing you've done. A tangible product adopted by people is the validation you need to build things that are bigger. And lastly, lean on existing tools to help you. If you're building a community product, then lean on Reddit and Discord or Slack. If your product is about organizing data, then look at Google Sheets and Airtable to help you out. And if it's about resource, then you can just look at something like Squarespace to be able to just build a website with all those resources in. And that's my video on MVPs, a subject I could spend all day talking about. If you want to hear more about it, then leave a comment down below and I'll be happy to make that. But in the meantime, a like and subscribe would be hugely appreciated. And go check out some of my other videos on scoping and problems to be able to understand the whole process of how to get here. But for now, I'll see you in the next one and thanks for watching. Bye.